Hi everyone, Catherine here from Inky Finger Cat, back with a Christmas in December project. Our theme in our Facebook group that I sort of started back in July, during Christmas in July, we now do like a monthly prompt to keep us going throughout the whole year. Not that obviously I need any help in keeping going throughout the year with Christmas projects because I love making them. But our theme for this month is Winter Wonderland, and I really wanted to make a card using this Merry Moose. Now the Merry Moose has already been made up, but all the rest of the bits, well, apart from the sentiment, are things I'm going to make from scratch. And to be honest, this was quite an involved project by the end. I think it took me just over an hour to make this card, but you know what? Loved every second of it, and obviously it would have taken even longer if I'd have made my moose up from scratch. So those who have been watching for a while know that occasionally especially if I'm getting the dies out, I'll go and do multiples of things and then have them ready to go for future projects. It's a good way of kind of like making life a little bit easier for future Catherine if she's already got some bits and pieces made up. So there were 3 die sets that I wanted to use. I wanted to use the Merry Moose, specifically the trees are what I'm die cutting here. I wanted to use, that's a Sizzix die, and then I've got the one with the bear in, that I can't remember the name of it. I just wanted the little funky snowflakes that are in that one. And then I wanted that Alter New tree ring die to be part of the background, to kind of create the grounding for the moose and the little woodland. That's generally my plan. Now, I am using scraps for all of this project. I have not cut into, until it gets to the card base, I have not cut into a new piece of cardstock. These are all scraps that are all sitting on my desk. This month has been very much about trying to clear out projects that are half done, use up pieces of paper, use up bits and pieces that are there, use the tiny scraps of cardstock to do die cutting. Very much a tidy up type of month it's been over on my blog. Perhaps not so much over here on my YouTube, but on my blog, that's very much been the theme of a lot of projects this month so far. So I did a lot of die cutting. Now I did speed up quite a lot of the process of the die cutting, and now I am going to start sort of aging some of those die cuts. I had to do something with these cream trees because obviously cream is a weird colour for me to have die cut, but I knew I wanted some that looked a little bit painterly, if that makes sense, just to give another different tone. I didn't want all my trees to look identical. I didn't want them all to look like they'd been fabricated, if you know what I mean. So as I put the elements onto the tree, I am going to do each one just slightly different, and you'll see how it finishes up. So my tree trunks and all of these little green pieces of the tree, I am going to age. Again, this takes quite some time, so I am going to speed it up into super speedy here. But all I'm doing is literally dabbing either the Distress ink in Vintage Photo or the Stampin' Up! Ink Early Espresso onto these green pieces so that they're not the same colour green all the way, so there's some variation. I'm not so concerned about it looking perfect or to make sense. It is literally just to give a bit of different colour. And now it's time to assemble. So this is quite fiddly. I'm not going to lie, it is quite fiddly. But you know what? It's quite enjoyable putting together these little trees. And I was listening to an audio book, and I didn't really mind that this was taking me a while. I needed to slow down the day I was making this. I'd had not a great weekend with a lot of things going on, and it had been a bit mad. So this was my moment of peace and quiet and just being creative. Always a good idea to give this little bit of time to yourself to just create, just see what happens. Now, anybody who's been watching my videos for a while will know, generally I don't really have a plan. I might have a plan about what products I want to use, but I don't really have an end goal in mind. And this was sort of it. I did vaguely have the idea of creating a scene on the circle of the tree thing, but I didn't really know what it was going to end up looking like. And as I was creating, I just came up with ideas as I was going along. So things like changing the coloration. So sorry, you'll notice that first one I did sort of make according to the packaging to see how they go together, because it's been a while since I've used this die. And then I'm just adding in bits as and when I go. I'm not really following the packaging, and I did cut more bits of green than I think you're meant to for each tree. I think I cut an extra 1 green to the number of tree trunks that I've created, but that's fine. But yeah, so I just, as I'm pootling along, putting these together, I'm just not really thinking, but as I'm doing it, I'm thinking, oh, glitter would be good. Fluff would be good. Could do this, could do that. So that's how my brain's working as I'm creating this. And again, I'm going to shove myself into super speedy fast forward, because this does take a while to make up 5 little trees with all these tiny little fiddly bits. Now you'll see the way I've done this is I've put myself a little dollop of glue onto my glass mat, and I'm using my little pokey tool to just pick that up so I know I'm getting only a tiny amount of glue. I mean, to be honest, I still end up as a bit of a sticky mess with my fingers. Sometimes I'm using my little picky up tool. What's that called? The little like wax head pokey up tool, the pink thing. And sometimes I'm just using my fingers. And yeah, you know what? I get a little bit sticky. My fingers are all a little bit mucky already from having done the adding the ink onto the stems of the tree, the trunks of the tree and the leaves. I've already got myself a little bit mucky, which is kind of normal, par for the course when you're inky-fingered cat. But yeah, I'm just picking up little dabs of the glue. Sometimes I'm then using my little picky up tool like I did then to place the thing on top. Sometimes I'm just placing my tree onto the little green frond because it's going to sit behind. Don't know if frond is the right word, but you know what I mean. And so I'm just literally going to finish off these last few bits, and then I am going to do a teensy little clean up, and then we're on to the next stage, which is pretty much, I think, going to be doing something about that tree ring. So at this point, I realised that what was going to happen was all those little pieces of the tree ring were going to come out of the die at the outside die cut, and I don't want that to happen. I want them all to be part of the same thing. So whilst it's still sat in the die, I am putting the double-sided sticky tape on the back. Some of them still stuck in the die, but this was a lot easier than doing each piece, each tiny piece having come out. So I was quite pleased with my little realisation that this would be a quicker and easier way of doing it. And I think it was only about 8 or 9 pieces that didn't quite stick in place rather than all 40 odd pieces that it would have been. So once that was done, I've got it on my sticky mat, my waffle flower grip mat, and I'm just going to ink it up. And again, because although I die cut it from this was like a cream watercolour cardstock, so it's got a little bit of texture to it. What I really wanted was for it to be brown, because that's what tree trunks are, but I wanted that variation of colour. So I've used my Distress inks and the Early Espresso from the Stampin' Up ink, added a little bit of spray water, and this is me just deciding, is this going to work as an idea? And I decide, yes, it's definitely going to work. So, remember when I said I had the idea of glitter? So this is me using the clear glitter glue. It's part of the Kingston Crafts Rainbow Glitter Glues. This clear one is the one that I use the most, so I'll probably need at some point to replace this because I've used it a lot. And I'm just adding some glitter glue along various bits and pieces of it. But then I thought, no, I did have that idea of the fluff, so I've gone and found that, and this is like a flock type material. So what that does is it makes everything look a bit fluffy and a bit frosty, and I thought combined with the glitter glue, I thought this would be a good option. So I'm now adding some extra dots and bits of normal glue next to or on top of or in between or whatever with the glitter glue. I know some of this flock is going to stick to my glitter glue too, but I'm hoping that that little bit of sparkle will still come through behind. And then I'm adding, in some places, quite a healthy amount of the flock. And then I'm going to shake them off and leave them to dry. Now, sensible Catherine would have at this point walked away. But I didn't. I carried on creating, even though they were clearly there and clearly in the way and I'm bound to put my fingers in them. I did carry on creating. I did contemplate going and having a bit of a break, but I really wanted to get this card done. So I had inked up my little Merry Moose prior to putting him together, but I have just added a little bit more inking. So I've put a little bit more brown on his body, and then I've added a little bit of a pinky red and brown to his antlers, just to give them a bit of a different colour definition. So it's more of a reddy brown. Now, this piece of green was a piece of scrap that was on the side. It's bigger than a card front, and I decided I wanted this to be my background, but I didn't want it plain. So first of all, I stamped with this Kingston Crafts background stamp. I don't think I've shared with you yet any of the projects I've made using these background stamps, because they've not yet been on been on the Hobby Maker show, and I've not shown you, you've not necessarily had the chance to see those samples. But I did notice that they are now available on hobbymaker.tv, and it's like a set of, I'm going to say 5 or 6 background stamps. I can't remember how many there are. So first of all, I stamped it with garden green, and it wasn't quite dark enough. I do just want this to be pattern in the background. I don't want it to be super dark. So instead I went in with the mossy meadow. So it's not like it's a black, it is a green on a green. And now I'm using these new dies that I bought the other day from Craft Addiction UK, which I think are really cute. So these are like a wobbly, wavy stitched line, and I've just cut out the outside and then another panel on the inside. So my idea is that I'm going to sort of raise up that middle panel, and then the bottom panel still sits on the card base. So that's my plan. But I did want to just, again, add some definition, add a bit of depth to this. So I'm adding in that Mossy Meadow ink just on the outside. Told you this was quite an in-depth card in the end. I don't know why. I just ended up just going to town on it. So that's my idea. So now I'm just going to add a little bit more brown to this, because I just felt like it was a little bit pale in places. So I'm now going to stick this to this middle panel and start gluing things in place. Again, I would advise, don't do this until all your glue has dried on your trees. But, you know, I'm impatient. I wanted to get this finished, and I managed to get this done. So I did sort of shorten a couple of my trees to make them slightly different heights, because, you know, trees do not grow uniformly. They are not factory made. So I do have them at different heights. We've got slightly different coloration going on. We've got different ways that the branches have been applied. And I really, really, really like this. I just think they're so fun. So yeah, they're fiddly to make, but you know what? They're so sweet, and they create such a fabulous finish in the background. Really different. I mean, this is the joy of a Tim Holtz product, isn't it? They're all a bit funky, all a bit different, a little bit vintage, a little bit quirky, but it works. And I just think they're fabulous. So there's my little woodland scene for my winter woodland. Obviously, we're now going to create my moose. Or not create my moose, but add my moose. So I've added plenty of glue along lots of different touch points for my moose, because I wasn't quite sure where he was going to touch. And what I couldn't do is do my usual trick of putting something heavy on top, because I hadn't let that flock and the glitter glue dry, and I didn't want it all just sticking to the acrylic block that I would have put on to make it heavy. So this is the point where I've now reached. I'm going to make my card blank. So my card blank is made from, I can't remember what it's called, crumb cake. It's a Stampin' Up colour of cardstock. Very, very popular. Most people will know what it is, but it's kind of like a very light craft colour. And I did slightly darken up the edge of the card blank using the inks, just because I really wanted it to look a little bit more in keeping with how the tree looks, but I didn't add more ink to my brush. I just used the ink that was already on it. Now here I am die cutting that exact same shape as that middle panel out of white cardstock, because I really want to stack it up, but I didn't want it to be with foam adhesive. So instead I've used four panels of cheap white cardstock. So this is a lot cheaper than using your coloured cardstock to do this. And my little my little tip and trick for this is to colour the edge. So all I've done is use that mossy meadow so that it turns it green on the edge, stops it looking so obvious that it was used white cardstock. And here I've now adhered it all together, put it all on the front. I've just used a little bit more glue to put the Merry Moose's back hoof down, because that was off the edge of the panel and I didn't want it to be in danger of being torn. So I have glued that down. Now by this point, because I knew I'd been going for a while, I've gone for a cheat. I've gone and used one of my pre-done sentiments. So I've used, it's a waffle flower one. It's been embossed with silver onto some green and die cut and stacked already. I've just popped that across the body of the moose. I've then glued those 3 little snowflakes that I cut out of silver glimmer paper. And now I'm just adding in a little bit of shimmer ink on the elements of the moose where it would have been like a silvery gold colour. And I've just added that onto his little thing around his neck, his bell, and his little bit that sits around his head. I don't know the names of these things, but where you would attach your reins. And that, dear friends, is my Christmas in December Winter Wonderland card done. Loads of work went into this, but I really enjoyed it. Sometimes it's worth spending the time. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe for future videos. But until next time, please leave a comment below, and goodbye.